I was gonna say, Gary, you got called. I'm sure he's not here.
Moi, j'ai 59, ça.
No, I'm not there. I'll say that, well, yes, I see 6 on that. You told me to follow that, so.
Je parle de son nom. Ok, c'est 59.
All right, please stand for the flag of Canada. Je remain standing.
La ville de Kapuskasing et son conseil reconnaissent que nous nous trouvons sur des terres traditionnelles de la Première Nation Moose Cree, dans le traité neuf, qui abrite également de nombreuses nations. We will continue to work in collaboration towards reconciliation in a healthy and mutual manner while sharing responsibility and accountability for the health of this land, which we also call home. Please also note that we communicate in English or French during our council meetings. Tous ont le droit de s'exprimer dans la langue de leur choix. Also note that we are live streaming this council meeting tonight, which is being tested. This test live stream will help us in addressing any technical difficulties. The content being streamed may be subject to copyright protection.
Be seated. All right, we need an approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Newton, that the agenda be approved as circulated.
Are there any changes? All in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest.
You too. I like you too.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
All right, so as you can tell, the technical difficulties aren't worked out yet. We're still gonna continue on nevertheless.
I'd like to declare conflict though.
I will lead you down that path, Gary. Hang on a sec. Declaration of pecuniary interest, general items thereof. You can read yours first, Gary.
Thank you. I'm having a problem with the audio, I guess. I'd like to declare a conflict on Article 7A, unfinished business, on Monday, September 9th. As the decision may have an impact on further matters that may have a similar situation.
All right. I also have conflict conflict of interest, I, Dave Stewart, declare a pecuniary interest to be deemed the decision may have an impact on the future matters that may be similar in nature. And that's with item 7A, request by Mrs. Berthold for legal fees.
And so I have the same conflict, I, Martin Dennison, declare the pecuniary interest, the decision may have an impact on future matters that may be similar in nature. And we also.
All right, are there any other declarations to declare? Right. Committee of the whole reports, and we'll start off with finance. Councillor Dennison.
Yeah, we have a presentation by Baker Tilly of the 2023 non-consolidated financial statements, and Mr. Chadwell is on here to present that. Here, well, you're Chad.
Thanks. So I'm here to, there's actually two reports. There's one that is the actual financial statements, not consolidated financial statements, which which includes the revenues and expenses, the statement of financial position, statement of cash flows and notes, just for the town of Cap operations. So it does not include any other entities that are controlled by the town. For example, the KDC, the capital being landfill, the EIA, any of the activities related to the solar operations. So it's just for the town only. What I do present though today is I prepared what's called a year-end financial summary, and it just shows the breakdown of how your books are seen internally. So your revenues and expenses that are reviewed internally, and then I show the adjustments that we have to do in order to prepare these financial statements to be in accordance with PSAP, which is the accounting standards that the municipality has to follow in terms of their operations in the financial statements. So it's a statement called year-end financial summary. This is the title page. So I'll go through this report here, which is the summary statement of operations and changes in financial positions or net debt within the credit position. So you can see that it spans through multiple columns. The first two columns are last year's numbers or 2022 numbers. So you have the first column, which is the 2022 budget. The second column is the 2022 financial activities or revenue and expenses that are per internal statements. So these are not the ones that are adjusted to PSAP. You have to look at the far right column to see the 2022 per financial statements, which are presented under PSAP. So these are just a comparative number for 2022. The third column is the 2023 budget. So you'll see all the revenues and expenses in relation to the budget for 2023. So the total budgeted revenues were $38 million, and the same for expenses, $38 million. So the budget break even point. So the fourth column is the operations for 2023 as per your internal financial statement. So you have all your revenues from taxation, fees and service charge. You'll see on the statement, on the financial statements that the evacuation revenues are presented under fees and service charge. I just separated them here so you can see the total amount, because that's important to know because it impacts the overall surplus at the end of 2023. So I'm just going to go through the numbers really quickly. Taxation, 12.5 million, fees and service charge, 8 million, evacuation, 2.3 million, OMPF grant, 4.6 million, operating and capital grants, $9 million, interest and penalties, 797,000, other revenues, 878,000. And then you have, in your revenues, you have your reserves, so you have transfers to and from reserves. Just your general reserves is 176,000. The water reserves is a transfer to of 635,000, and the sewer reserve is a transfer to of 275,000. So total revenues, $37.5 million as per your internal financial statements. In terms of expenses, they're broken down by function and department. So general government, 2.7 million, protection services, 4.8 million. Transportation, 14.6 million, environmental, 7 million, Health, social, and family services, 2 million, recreational and cultural services, 2.5. Planning, development, and other, 612,000, so total expenditures, 34,349,000. So if you look at your surplus, on your internal financial statements, it's at, $3.2 million. And then I have some adjustments at the bottom there, and I'll explain why later, where it shows that those numbers, internal numbers, balances to the numbers, on the financial statement. So from that surplus of $2.2 million, we add back the total of, transfers to and from reserves at 734,000. And we add back the long-term debt repayments, which are, repayment of principals and not expenses, so $1.6 million. So your total increase in that in your financial position is about $5.6 million. You started off with net debt of $1.9 million. So the financial position or net assets at the end of this year is almost $3.7 million. The columns after that's column 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are all the adjustments that we have to do to the internal statements in order to get to the PSAP financial statement. So we remove the transfers to and from reserves, which are not anything revenues and expenses, they're just internal transfers of the accumulated surplus or the retained earnings or accumulated surplus or retained earnings. So the total of that is 734,000. We then remove the long-term debt repayments. So those are the principal payments on the long-term debt, which are included as expenses in your internal financial statements. But for PSAP, we actually reduce the long-term debt on the balance sheet, so on the statement of financial position. So the total principal repayments was $1.6 million. In your expenses, you also have capital expenditures, which are capitalized on the balance sheet or on the statement of financial position and amortized over its useful life. So those are large projects like the roads that will be done, and some of the projects that included water and sewer capitalized. So the total capital expenditures was $8.9 million. So we remove that from expenses, what we add down to capital the capital assets on the balance sheet. And then those capital assets are amortized over time over their useful life. So the amortization expense for this year, if you look at the total, is $4.2 million. So on the financial statements, you'll see revenues of $38.3 million, and you'll see expenditures or expenses of $28 million. You'll see a surplus on the financial statements of $10.2 million. If we go from there and we take out the purchase of tangible capital assets of $8.9 million, we add back the amortization. We had an increase in financial position, the same as we saw earlier for the internal statements of $5.6 million. We add that to last year's net debt of $1.9 million. So the net assets or the financial position at the end of this year is $3.67 million. The next page after that is you'll see the history of the balance sheet, so the statement of financial position. So you see at the top there, you have your assets, you'll have your current assets, your current liabilities. So it's presented a little bit differently than what you see on the financial statement. But you can see on there, you can see the current position that the town is in that, and then we adjust for the long-term assets and long-term liabilities to end up with the overall net assets at the end of the year. So in terms of current assets, so that's your cash and cash equivalents, your receivables, your grants and other receivables, your inventories and prepaid expenses. Total current assets is $15.5 million. In terms of current liabilities, so you have your accounts payable, accrued liabilities, and other payables is $3.8 million. And then you have deferred revenues and obligatory reserve funds. The total of that is $6.9 million. So the net current assets or the net financial position, current financial position is at $8.5 million. In terms of long-term assets and liabilities, so you have long-term receivables, which are physician recruitment incentives of $575,000. You have a long-term debt that's incurred on behalf of the KDC, so that's a receivable from KDC of $416,000. You have due from related parties of $15.1 million, and you have due to related parties of $122,000. You have long-term debt that's incurred on behalf of KDC, which is payable, of $416,000, and you have the long-term debt of $20.5 million, so total net long-term liabilities, $4.9 million. So the net current assets of $8.5 million, less the net long-term liabilities of $4.5 million, equals total net assets at the end of the year of $3.7 million. So this $3.7 million is made up of the general surplus that we just went through for the internal financial statements of $3.2 million. You have general reserves of $14.6 million. You have water reserve of $4.4 million, sewer reserve of $1.8 million. And then you have the long-term debt of $20.5 million. Of all that is again $3.67 million. So I put these numbers all the way back to 2017 just to see where you were at back then. So you were at $15.9 million in a net debt position, and in 2023 you're actually in a positive position of $3.67 million.
The net debt position is not to be confused with the amount of loans we have.
Not to be confused with the amount of cash or with the assets that you have. So that is just the difference between the assets and the liabilities at the end of 2023. So there's still some receivables in there that will be converted to cash. There's still some expenses or some payables in there that will be, coming out of the cash. So there's still some adjustments, but this is the financial position at the end of 2023.
I jump in with the question. Still reasonable to say that the level of municipal debt is improving, that it's a positive trend. Does this give us any insight into the capacity for borrowing? Is it improving as a result of this, or is it purely a balance sheet exercise?
With your capacity of obtaining more loans?
Yeah.
So there's another restraint in terms of municipalities with the annual debt repayment limit, which is a different calculation. It's based on revenue that can be generated by the town, and it takes into account your current debt obligations. So when you go for external financing, this is one of the things that the banks or whoever is going to look at. You cannot exceed that.
Is that part of this assessment, Chad, or is that outside the scope of this particular audit? Assessing those kinds of.
Well, we can get you. We just don't have audit. So it's prepared. It's also prepared with the consolidated financial statement.
Okay.
So it takes into account any other entities, because it's calculated on the FIR, which is the financial reporting that's done to the province, and that's where they basically take the numbers for the calculations.
Okay. Would that consolidated statement then also give us an update in terms of our debt servicing ratio and whether we're in a healthy ratio?
Yeah, it's something that they're not sure if it's provided when you do the report, but I think when they get it and send it back, you have all those performance indicators or where you can look at if you're getting better in terms of those in those ratios.
Okay, thank you.
And does that include the debt of the PECUNIARY?
No, it's not included in that.
Well, this is all separate.
It includes the one from the town.
There'd be a receivable.
Yes, it includes the one.
Yeah, so it includes, so there's a receivable from the energy.
But we're still liable for that.
But the long-term debt that's in those energy companies is not included in here. So this is just presenting the town's,
Okay, but those debts that we have there probably reflect on our ability to borrow more money also,
I don't think it does.
no?
It does? Yeah.
It does because we're liable, right? We're guarantors on the loans, so it does
Yes.
affect our ability to borrow. It does affect our annual repayment.
We have to keep that into consideration.
So Chad, I think just to surmise, obviously, we're in a better position than we were 10 years ago. We're moving in the right direction. We want to keep moving in that direction.
Yes.
I think when you gave us a presentation way back when, and we were saying 9,123 the negative, it's fair to say now that, it's going in the right direction. I think we should just keep going and do it together.
So you can see it's reflected in the long-term debt line, in the top section there, you can see the long-term debt is decreasing over time, so you're not incurring any new long-term debt, it's actually financed in terms of with grants or with reserves or.
Mhm.
Board, any other questions for Chad? Hearing none.
Is that the extent of, there's other sheets, are we just going through the summary page on the?
Yeah, we're just going to go through this.
Unless you have questions, Jim?
Just one, there's a question, a line item in there that was called trades and receivables. I assume we were gonna go with, it's on page 1. And I don't recall understanding what trades and other receivables meant. Well, it says note 3, maybe it's explained there, but there was a significant difference from 2022 to 2023, an increase of 6 million. And I just wanted to understand what that might be, what that means.
So there's a note on page 5 that shows you the breakdown of where the money, from which government the money is from. So you have some from the government of Canada, $11 million, province of Ontario, 1.4 million, other receivables, 556, and water account receivables. So you have a breakdown there, what makes up that 14 million. There's a large increase in the receivable for the government of Canada, but a large portion of that is for the evacuees.
There, it's that federal component that is the big increase there.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. No other questions?
No other questions, anybody? Thank you very much, Pat. The next item is the for information cost statements as of December 31st, 2023.
The reason we present those is, when you look at the financial statements, it's difficult to understand where the pluses and minuses are. Mileni has prepared, like if you, in the financial statements, it showed that we had a surplus of 3.23, I think. Largely made up of evacuation revenues that we don't budget for, but the remaining 900-ish thousand you would find in the cost statement. But Mileni's prepared some high-level remarks as to where that money comes from. If you're interested.
You want to go through some of that now? Highlights?
Yep, so the surplus was approximately 3.2 million, and out of that, like Elaine mentioned, there was 2.3 million coming out of evacuation revenues, and the remaining approximately 885,000 comes from, there's an interest revenue coming from the operating account, which was underestimated in the 2023 budget by approximately 145,000. And if you recall, we had invested in GICs in 2023, which we have cashed out at the end of the year, but that gave us a little bit more interest in 2023. There's also 167,000 of revenue coming from the sale of the solar flow-through fund shares, which that was not anticipated at the beginning of the year. There's a saving of $75,000 coming from the volunteer firefighters as the strain was held and the volunteer force operated without a full complement in 2023. And I had also underestimated the recycling revenues by approximately $250,000. $250,000. This is since the landfill has received more revenues coming from the RPRA, which is the Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority. And this then reduces the town's share as well as Mooking's share and Greenford's share towards their contribution to the landfill board. And then there's also the Cochrane District Social Services Administration Board and the manor requisition, which were approximately $100,000 lower than anticipated, since they had funded part of their operations with the reserves. And then the final one, we had also seen savings in wages occurring due to employees leaving the corporation and the time that we hired either new employees or maybe not having to replace some employees.
And then there's a few little differences elsewhere, but the majority is, I don't know if you have any questions.
I'll hear any questions. Thank you very much, Mel. And is it for finance?
It's Chad.
Okay.
But seeing that we did have the cost statements in front of us, and I'm looking at a lot of the columns, overspent. We're at 94%, is that a?
This is last year.
This is last, not for last year.
Yes,
December 23.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the way I read it.
Yeah, I say what, the heck, okay. All right then, so you're done with, finance, we'll move to planning, Councillor Newton, do you have anything?
Nothing for myself, sir.
Okay, perfect. Protective Services, Emergency Management, Councillor Benoit, do you have anything to add?
Unless something changed, there's no items on the agenda tonight.
No. Just always an opportunity to bring some up if you had. Public Works, Councillor Button.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, the first item is to approve the updated 2024 asset management plan as presented. That council approved the updated 2024 asset management plan as presented to meet ODOT Reg 588/17.
Yeah, I'll,
Finding
so, 2 years ago, we submitted the asset management plan, essentially to make sure that we were still eligible for grants. And that management plan only included, 4 assets, so water, sewer, roads and bridges. And, storm piping. And back then, the message was, that cost a lot of money to replace all this infrastructure. This time, the regulation asked us to include other assets. So I added the categories of sidewalks, curbs, buildings, equipment, vehicles, the airport runway, parks and streetlights. So the regulation is very general, it asks to include all assets. These are the categories that I thought were worthwhile. Investing the time to count how much we should be spending on these annually, because they're pretty major categories. And there are things that have a long lifespan and that cost a lot of money. So I did that exercise. In summary, it's a little bit the same story as the other categories where there's a disconnect between how much we spend on these items and how much it costs to keep
Life cycle.
yeah, to keep up, yeah. So the costs are not as large as underground infrastructure and roads. But I still added another roughly 2.5 million per year, and if we just take like a couple items, like sidewalks, annually I come up to 350. And
So sorry, you're looking at the executive summary 4.0? Is that what you're looking at, so that they can reference and follow you, that's possible?
yeah, so the table.
Table at the 4.0, it's on page 7.
Yeah, I
So
do.
that's what he'll be referencing in terms of example.
So that's the bulk of the asset management plan. I forget about the text, all of the more detailed tables. This pretty much paints the whole story. Previously I had reported, looking for roughly 5 million for street reconstruction. And now I add another 2.5 for all the categories that I listed earlier. And I was just using sidewalks as an example because we're talking about sidewalks a lot this year. And I estimate that with the number of sidewalks we have here, to keep up with replacing them every 4 years, it will be 350,000 per year. So that's, I don't recall exactly what our budget is. I think it's around 80 or 100.
No, it's less than that.
And it includes, it's about 50, okay. Anyway, so it's just, I just wanted to point out that there's still that disconnect between keeping up with these things. So essentially what's going on right now in town is that
we're slowly degrading all of these networks.
On the sidewalks, you said they had to replace every how many years? What's the life expectancy for sidewalks?
I picked 40 years for
40 years.
for that analysis, yeah. Seen other master plan that pick even less than that, but I think 40 is a good middle of the road. I expect we'll get more on certain sidewalks and less on, it's gonna be very dependent on what type of sub-base we have and what type of ground conditions we have.
But in the plan, as we go forward, I know we had some discussions at the public works committees and to have sidewalks or not have sidewalks, curbs or not, curbs and these, they're very expensive items.
This is replacement in kind essentially, so with the current quantities that we have, that's what I use for quantifying that table.
Do you think in the future we may not be able to afford to keep the same amount of sidewalks?
I'm saying we're there already, yes.
Okay. So later on, I guess.
But it's not just sidewalks, it's everything on this list. Including equipment, vehicles,
But with pipes in the ground is something that we can't see if they're leaking, and I think that's critical.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important thing. Vehicles, yeah, they're above ground, they're easy to replace, like it's not as critical as the infrastructure in the ground. We have to take that into
I agree.
consideration.
I agree, but I just want to point out that, you know, it's still easy if you're operating 40 vehicles. It's hard to tell if you're keeping up with replacing them at the proper rate, because it's easy to just, always be one short, let's say every year. And then you only notice like year 15 when all your fleet is all of a sudden all old. So it's still easy to let the fleet,
The other question remains, does the fleet have to be that big? So I mean, there's always, but as far as the pipes are concerned, I think that's the most important thing to look at is the infrastructure under the ground that we can't see.
Certainly, the pipes are more, when you start addressing the issue, it takes a lot longer before you address the issue. Whereas a vehicle, if it fails, you could go and buy another one. Where you can't just decide we're gonna change a pipe today, it's a multi-year plan to replace.
So I'm getting at, it's one is a lot harder to manage than the other.
It's also more difficult to diagnose, where there's not a lot of information about pipes. Every once in a while, we dig one up and we look at what we see, but so the amount of data is more limited in terms of its condition.
so it's a fair argument, and I think these numbers, I think, can be debated. And I'm gonna always add as much precision as I can to them. But I think it's a good baseline to at least have a discussion when we come at budget time about how much do we need to spend in categories. It's another perspective that I think is very important to consider. And this isn't arguing that, you know, how we're gonna get there or exactly what we're gonna need, but I think it documents my best guess at how much we should be spending. Reading my notes there. So even one more time that the largest dollar value disconnect is in underground piping. Those are the most expensive items, and they're the easiest to let go without noticing that they're degrading.
But in the future, those are the ones that are going to give you the most problems, or that have the potential to give you the biggest
I
problem.
think they have the most potential.
Impact, they'll have the most
Yes,
impact.
like if one, you know, because it's a network of piping where issues on one or a few or handful of pipes can impact the whole town, right? To a large degree, as opposed to other infrastructure where it's one building or one piece of equipment, you won't feel like if there's a catastrophic failure of something. It's not the whole town that feels it immediately, and usually you can fix the problem. The network of piping is a different story.
But it's still, I guess, on the upside is that in past years, at least the main, like the water plant is fairly new. But the water tower is fairly new, so we have some positives in that piping system. If we look at what happened in Calgary, it was a main artery. It is a lot more catastrophic. It's a lot, bigger impact than on some of the lower fishery piping.
I think we have a good track record the past few years. We've been spending quite a bit. We had the grants, we tapped into the reserve, so I think the rate of spending has been pretty good the last well, since I've been here the last 4 years. And this, you're gonna hear me keep urging council to keep up that rate.
Jeff, so in anticipating future failures, is there a way to planning going forward that when we do water main repairs that we can include shut off valves to isolate certain areas that if something was to happen in certain areas that we might be able to shut off a section of town so it doesn't affect? Or is that going too far into like?
We have those valves already in place. Whenever we do a project, we typically add a couple more. But it's gonna take another 80 years of projects to have everything in place. But and it's not a solution really to be able to isolate, because that only covers one failure mode of like a catastrophic failure in one area. But the other failure mode of just the whole system leaking, and you don't know where, isolation doesn't help.
Okay.
So
There's no.
is it fair to say that balance between spending on pipes and spending on curbs and sidewalks, where would you put the dollars?
I think we need to have those discussions.
That's a policy decision, not a technical decision, but.
No, but it's a financial decision. It's where where do we get the best bang for our buck?
It's there's a big difference in there's savings available in like surface finish, but they're gonna be a fraction of the cost of the project. If you're talking 10-20%, even if you trim everything down, you might be able to cut the cost like 10-20%.
And even if half your numbers are wrong, say you're half right, it's still a large number. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. So I don't think, I'm not here to argue or justify all the numbers. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that we're letting stuff deteriorate, and that we should consider this at budget time and have good discussions, and make sure to approve that plan also. Just we need to have an improved plan for being able to keep applying to grants. That was the other side of that. And that update.
That's become secondary. It started as the primary driver behind the asset management plan, but at least for me, it's become a secondary value. The primary value is looking at the information, and to your point, even if it's half wrong, it's still concerning.
Yeah, so it's a critical tool to make any decision and understand.
They really
Any
enlighten,
planning whatsoever.
it really enlightens you, because I mean, it's crazy what you're getting into, like, that you don't even consider, like sidewalks, curbs, really.
They're expensive.
Yeah,
And the other part of the curbs is, what's maintenance going forward.
So there's, well, for curbs and sidewalks, essentially replacements. Like when they're end of life, they get replaced. So that's most of the cost is there, right? There's not really any maintenance on this, but.
But I think we have to have the discussion on that, because there's many streets in town that don't have sidewalks and curbs.
Are you suggesting to remove some sidewalks and curbs?
Well, I think we've done it in the past, like if the sidewalks becomes a hazard, then it's gonna cost us, we're liable for the sidewalks. Are we better off not to have them there than to expose ourselves to liability?
It's a risk either way, but it's something we need to look at.
Because I don't know what the numbers are, but it'd be interesting to know how many streets in town have sidewalks versus the ones that don't have sidewalks.
Yeah, pretty good data on that.
You have the data on
Do it
that?
now.
Yeah, like eventually, we're starting to have quite a bit of data on sidewalks and curbs and we're doing around different concepts and stuff and eventually we'll probably have a discussion specifically on sidewalks and curbs. With more data.
I think a lot of the streets that we're rebuilding were too wide now. Perfect example is Villeneuve Road north. It's so wide, but if you look at, we're always saying about gravel being so expensive, asphalt being so expensive. We really didn't have to go that wide.
There's a direct link between width and
Cost.
yeah,
Cost,
if you go 20% less wide, it's gonna be.
We could have went down to 20% on that road, no problem at all, because there is no parking there. Along both sides. So why are we so wide? That we all looked at it. But maybe now that it's brought to our attention, we can actually do that on some of the roads and get a good cost saving there instead of elimination of sidewalks, which is a good safety factor for kids. We gotta start remembering the safety factor of things. And I don't want to put kids' lives in danger just to save a buck. I don't think anyone wants to around here. Cause that's what sidewalks.
There's lots of values for sidewalks to know
Exactly.
safety and also encouraging active transportation and walking and avoiding use of automobiles and those kinds of things, motorized vehicles.
It's separation.
So that's a separate discussion, and like I say, I'm pretty sure we'll bring more data specific to this and make this an agenda item.
I think it's a discussion that we have to have in the district, coming up there.
So any other questions for item number 1?
The one thing, Jeff, was just in section 18 of the plan, we are talking about community growth rates that are incorporated in this, and I know we did an update to our forecast and there's more growth. Yeah, so I don't know if John, if you is that something that I don't know if you take a look at, but just make sure that I think the growth rate we're anticipating is different than what is being assumed.
Okay,
Yeah,
I saw the census base right now, and there hasn't been a revised census since.
Okay, so it's the census base, okay.
It was very brief, I'm definitely open to adding additional details. That was part of the regulation, needed you had to have a section on growth.
Yeah.
That was the most simple section I could do by just tabulating census over the years.
And we now have a forecast into, what is it, 2035? 2051? Okay, projecting what our population growth rate will be over that period.
There's another update coming up next year this time. And it has to do with relative service. Okay, so maybe that would be a good time to incorporate that. But I think it was a little bit more of a check the box section.
Because of this exercise, it's not likely wouldn't affect anything that was done in terms of adding those additional asset classes, but in terms of level of use, it might be material looking forward 30 years. The other question I had related to the report is what asset classes are still missing from this? Is recreational facilities or like are all buildings in here?
All buildings.
Okay. So is there anything that is not in the plan in terms of assets yet?
There's a few that are on my radar, just where it's still diminishing returns at this point. Parking lots are not included. Concession road traffic lights, concession roads are in there.
And this one?
They were there before, it's just there's no replacement cost for them. There's only a maintenance cost. Yeah.
Monsieur le maire.
Oui.
Je vois aucun équipement d'incendie de respiratoire qui est entraîné, de compresseur à air. Il n'y a rien qui est dedans. Et les respiratoires, c'est 350 000 par terme.
Ouais, j'ai pas aussi non plus d'équipement à dire. Il y a plusieurs choses que j'assume qui sont bien tenues en compte dans le budget, normalement. C'est plus quelque chose que le long vie, de 20, 30, 40, 80 ans, c'est inclus dans notre plan. Mais on pourrait intégrer n'importe quelle catégorie qu'on pense qui est assez majeur.
OK.
Il n'y aurait pas de problème. Ouais. J'ai l'équipement, j'ai votre bâtisse puis les camions, mais non, j'ai pas de cet équipement. Je trouve que les outils pour être on a juste les équipements mobiles.
Donc, je regardais les appels, c'est 350 000 500.
Puis,
Ça dure 20 ans. C'est beaucoup d'argent.
les gens, je pense qu'on en parle pour l'équipement. Ça va peut-être une meilleure information que ça.
We, Jay, now, how up to date is it? Just because I'm looking at, Grinnell Road North and I don't see the, have you plugged in that we actually changed the water on Grinnell North?
No, I haven't, like the tables are still,
Okay.
the water inventory, sewer inventory
2022.
are still
Okay.
perhaps revised, no.
Cause I'm excited to see the new infrastructure there. It has a lifespan that's, going forward, so. Okay.
Avec autre chose, tu l'as ajouté?
No.
Okay. So item number 2, to proceed with detailed engineering services for connecting Link Riverside to Bonnieview. Recommendation that council awards the contract for detailed engineering services for connecting Link in Cape 9 Riverside to Bonnieview to Expedia Services Inc. in the amount of $1,475 plus HST. Is there anything you would like to add on that, or? No?
A little bit more with JF,
That's the next grant that we're already approved for. That it spans this year and next year, so we want to do engineering, this year. By early winter, be done with that and go out for bid, which will be earlier than our usual schedule. Which I think would be favorable for putting us in line to do this work and hopefully maybe even get more bidders before earlier and before everybody else. Increase our chances. Engineering wise, it's mostly a resurfacing job, quite a bit longer than what we're used to. The last 2 connecting links were about 600 meters long, but we were redoing piping. This time it's 2 kilometers long. But surface repair. And we're gonna do an inspection of part of that engineering scope is to do a detailed inspection of the pavement and the subgrade to see what needs to be repaired. And we'll tailor the repair to conditions that we find. And we'll try to make it fit within the, just over the, maximize the grant, but minimize the municipal. So we have some leeway there as to, how much of the asphalt we replace. How much of the subgrade we replace.
Anybody had questions on that? Go for it.
on that one there, we're still doing shoulders too, right? Of the highways.
That's the plan.
Also, I had I don't think we've had a meeting since AML, but I had the opportunity to meet with MTO with Villeneuve in regards to Connect Link, specifically on the east side. Again, conveying that I was disappointed with the fact that, you're doing up to the line, and actually the ministers kind of looked at Herb and said, like, we should be, so get ready for a call, if you'll probably receive a call anyway. And to talk about that.
I've been pushing that on my end as well with my MTO contacts.
Okay.
To maximize the project that's going on and extend the limits into towns.
Yeah. Yeah, and Phenom is actually pushing to have a complete upload of connecting link. So they'd like a complete upload and at a minimum Trans-Canada Highway 11 and 17. So that's been our pitch to the ministry. So, hopefully they hear, because it, that affects everybody along Trans-Canada Highway. And it's wrong that we're still paying for that. But anyways, not to be the dead horse, but I think you'll probably get a phone call on that.
Okay, item Number 3. So the recommendation is to award the contract for reconstruction of King, Birch and Oak to Villeneuve. The proposed cost reduction items for the amount of 3,435,791 plus HST. Paul, you have anything to?
That's mine again.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me.
So, when we went out for a tender of this, in this summer, we only had Villeneuve come up, was the only, bidder. Pricing was, higher than budget primarily because, we tendered, a larger project than what we budgeted for. There was a section on Birch that, was not gonna get replaced, 140-meter section where the piping is, not in as bad a shape, let's put it this way. And we did not budget for that section, but we engineered it. We went out for a tender with it to see how close we would get. Because essentially if we leave a 140-meter section, we'll never go back and do this. It would be very inefficient with tie-ins and such. So that's why the primary reason we're over budget is because of that extra section. Nevertheless, we looked at the scope in a lot of detail and we're able to trim another roughly 200,000 to bring it somewhat closer to budget. And we're proposing to proceed with this because those projects are in dire need of replacement, and we don't want to go through another winter. That's the two sections that do being redone: 100 meters on King and 400 meters on Birch. No.
So proposed cost reduction items. Can you explain the
Yeah,
reductions?
so
What the reductions are?
on King, we're keeping storm and
Sewage.
storm and sewage as a combined system. The reason we've been pretty on every project in the past 10 years, we've been separating those two systems. This for this specific little section of street, I'm leaving it combined because there's a very small catchment area going through it. And it's discharging into another combined system. And it's only gonna be a long time until we need to do like 2 or 3 projects downstream before we're actually separating the system. So even though it's separated there, for that tiny catchment area, it would remain combined for the next 30 years. And I don't think it's worth the additional expense for that catchment area. We're also narrowing the street. Essentially, that street is inconsistent in width. In one area, at both ends of our project, it was narrower. And in the middle, it was thicker. It's a curve. It's hard to tell that it widens in the curve, but it does. So we're narrowing this. It's only a difference of 1 meter. And the other thing we're proposing is asphalt boulevards with concrete curb as opposed to concrete sidewalk. And for that part, I think it's worth more discussion. That the finished part would be next year.
Could we approve this project and, because there's no payment this year on this.
No finishing, that's what he was gonna see.
No, yeah. Go as far as that and still have our discussion on curbs and sidewalks.
Yes, that's what I think. In fact, I would propose to cancel a sidewalk on that street. There's 2 sidewalks. One is they're both in disrepair. I think if we had 1 good sidewalk, would be better than 2 sidewalks in disrepair. That's a longer discussion. I don't want to hold back the project for.
No, but I think we have to go down that road and have that discussion of what we're gonna do, because it's not only for these streets, but it's for all the streets that we're gonna reconstruct. We have to look at some type of equity too, I guess, because I don't understand how come half, I'm just saying half, I don't believe, I'm just proposing half this town has sidewalks and the other half doesn't. Yet everybody pays the same amount, so you have to have that discussion. I think it's got to give some thought to that too also.
And I agree. So like I say, I will prepare some information and we'll have more discussion. For Birch Oak, the cost reduction items are We're still keeping separate storm and sewer, but we're sizing down the sewer. The original design called for 450 millimeter. We went down to 300 millimeter in subsections. Still a big improvement. Right now, where everything is combined in a 250 millimeter pipe. So we'll have two separate pipes and still a size increase. And we're also proposing to narrow the little section of Birch that goes towards Elm. Extremely wide here, wider than Villeneuve for some reason, that section of the street. So we're narrowing that. And again, proposing a paved boulevard, paved sidewalks already in curb as opposed to concrete. But we can on all projects together, going with the most expensive options of sidewalks and curbs to the least expensive, we're looking at about 200,000. So that's the amount of impact we can have on the project by selecting different types of options for edge of road.
That's between and the city. But if there was no curbs and no sidewalks, then what would the number be?
Roughly 200,000 less, yeah.
It's between the two projects.
A bit more, yeah. 300, probably 300,000. If we were to cancel all curbs and sidewalks, but I don't think we want to go that far.
No, but I just want to know the number. What's the number? Like how much?
About 300.
300,000.
Out of the 3.5 million for the all projects.
And future cost to maintain that.
Yeah, in 40 years, we would expect it would need to be replaced.
The curbs and sidewalks would last longer than the roads. The concrete lasts longer than the actual.
But it's, if
You still have to maintain it, still have to.
but maintain,
Yeah.
I'm what we're getting at, because there's all kinds of streets in town that don't have them, so where do we?
Yeah,
How do we balance that? That's the thing.
I think there's subdivision agreements.
Yeah.
That were signed beforehand, that we have to maintain a certain level of service. John will
Yeah,
probably would speak to that,
that-
so I think that's part of the bigger discussion that we need to have.
Do we need to have that discussion? I don't think, something
Yeah.
that was signed or.
It's just not as simple as saying, well, have it or don't have it, we still have. Files and agreements. that
We've
are-
always just supposed that we have to replace, I mean, is that reality or not? That's the thing, can we, the other thing, can we afford it?
So to make this move ahead though, like, we're okay with the fact of awarding the contract to Villeneuve for the construction and have that discussion of pavement and curbs and sidewalks later, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's it for me. Oh, Bruce, you had a.
Dave, can we table to get this sidewalk issue on for one of our meetings in the very near future? Because we keep on pushing it off. That's for 2 months, 3 months now.
Well,
We've been talking about it.
Well, I think, honestly, you could have it at the next meeting if you want, but I think to be able
Yes,
to
and I
move
agree
forward with
with
the
I'm
contract.
saying to get prepared.
Yeah.
So if we have something, we have to
That's what we've
definitely.
been doing, Bruce. I think, Jeff's been assigning that work to the students this summer.
Yeah, so as far as we have a good condition assessment with the inventory of what we have. I would need to prepare some sort of presentation for, just to summarize.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what Bruce getting at is, we're at Public Works Committee meetings, we've been discussing it, but I think it's a.
We have to have a
discussion.
template.
All of council should be there to have the discussion on where we're gonna go, because we keep kicking the can down the road.
We shouldn't plan to put asphalt if we're not doing asphalt. Like, when you make up a plan for a road, it should be that plan, whatever you're gonna use, cement or asphalt. You know what I mean? That way.
Well, currently, the contract, we put all of these sidewalk options as separate provisional items in the contract.
Okay.
So that we can pick one or none. So it's up, the contract already, not the contract, the new contract hasn't been done, but the tender, those items are provisional items.
So between now and next year, we can decide, and we'll do it sooner than later, obviously, because we don't construct in the winter time, so over the winter time, we can discuss whether or not we want sidewalks on one side or sidewalks on both or curbs and sidewalks.
I think the discussion has to be not only related to Birch and Oak in this project, it has to be related to what all the streets that we're going forward, what's gonna be the template, what's gonna be our standard.
Yeah, and that could be a discussion with council. That's fair.
And that was all for me.
All right, health council. You still there, Gary?
I am, but I think you skipped, Councillor LeBlanc before me.
Oh, economic development, community well-being, recreation. Thanks for that, Gary.
You're very welcome, very welcome.
I'm here. Thank you, Mayor. So there was a request to inform council of the Community Sports and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. The recommendation is to seek feedback from council on a funding opportunity for the Community Sport and Recreation Fund. There are two options here, to repair and upgrade existing sports and recreation facilities between $150,000 to $1 million. The fund may cover up to 50%. The second, opportunity here is to build new and transformative sports and recreation facilities up to 10 million, and the fund may cover up to 50%. So there's a information here. Max, essentially quelque chose.
Well, we received this, I think many of you may have, so we just, we put it out to council and see for some discussion, perhaps a recreation meeting. I mean, there's a million and one options we could look at. There's 50% at least cost on our part, so.
And because of that, the discussion we just had, we're not necessarily chasing anything, but we didn't want to assume that on our own, so that's why it's appeared tonight for discussion.
I have a few questions now. You know if you can apply for both streams? Or you can only
I
apply
believe
for
it's one stream.
one stream?
Yeah.
Can you top it off with other federal?
No,
No,
not.
okay, and this one, is it provincial or federal?
This
You
is
know?
provincial.
This is provincial, and you can't top it off with a federal. Okay.
I would like to bring it back to a recreation meeting, if that's possible, we can discuss it. I know it's time sensitive, October 29th, but maybe we can do something interesting.
I also have just a comment with the presentations we have received last year from the students and the Rotary Club and the Canadian Tire. Maybe this would be an opportunity if we choose to go in the new facility and perspective, but I'm sure that the arena would need some TLC in certain areas also, so it's hard to
Well, I think
prioritize.
the exercise at minimum would be worth our while, just seeing that we know that they're anticipating a spring election provincially and also federally. You know, we'll see some changes down the road, so to have something ready on the shelf when politics start playing, it might be worth our while to have something ready if need be. So, you know, if at a minimum, we do the exercise and figure out, you know, is there something there that we can work on, both whether it's in the transportation sector or even in pipes in the ground or housing for that matter. I think it's worth our while just getting our heads together, trying to figure out what we can do fast enough, so.
So in terms of any assets that, recreation assets that we have now that need some upgrading or some repair, I assume it's many, in the arena. So are we armed with that, like with an understanding of that? Because it seems like we should definitely take advantage of some funding requests of some kind, particularly if we know we have, repairs and upgrades that need to be made as a minimum.
The only thing that we know that's coming at the arena is the power plant. We know we need to do something with that system at some point. It's not gonna last the 20 years that it's designed for. We don't have very good solution. We have a plan, we need to review it. It was produced here locally, but that'd be the only thing, to be honest, that I think is in the books for scheduled repairs or upgrades. Otherwise, we've spent quite a bit of money at the pool in the last few years, upgrading the pool, the roof, there's always more you can be spending. So I'm not debating that, but we gotta pay 50% of it, right? So.
Yeah, but given that it's targeting certain asset classes like recreation, that 50% offers a better return than, and if you know.
Then nothing.
Then nothing.
Yes.
So it alters the equation in terms of saying, well, I would target this particular asset for repair because we're gonna get a 50% support versus something else. It's good to
But
have.
we don't wanna make it a pilot, right? If we weren't gonna spend the money, are we suggesting we develop projects that we were not gonna do to begin with, or?
No, but in terms of repair or upgrade existing facilities, we have the asset management plan that talks about buildings, that talks about those particular assets. So you should know which ones are going to require upgrade or need repairs, or are we 100% optimal condition of every recreational facility we have? Is that the case?
No.
No, and then we've got.
No, the application is too soon, so we don't have anything in the books for this round of.
So we don't have anything shelf ready or an understanding or a plan to fix anything.
Nothing that I'm aware of requires that sort of attention, so I think we'd be creating a project.
So this analysis has already been done, or is this an opportunity to quickly gut check that to make sure that is truly the case?
There's no analysis that's been done. It's more,
Knowledge.
yeah, knowing what. There's work that can be done at the arena. There's still more work that can be done at the pool with the change room facilities that they've looked at. There's dryatron issues, the main dehumidification.
But we weren't gonna budget for any of that next year, put it this way. I don't think any of that was scheduled to be budgeted.
No,
it's
it's discussed a long time.
It's not needed at this
It's not
time,
even needed that bad, I guess.
or because there's a fear it may not be approved, because those are two different things, but it's not needed at this time.
Well, the dryatron is an issue that every year we think there's no replacement for it. Like there's no parts. It's been there since the beginning. So but we, patch it up. There's work that can be done in the ball fields, upgrading the fields. It's been years and years, we do a little bit. But is that making it up or is that, required?
The concern I have is we just heard from, Jean-François about the urgent needs and the core asset, spending. And it feels like we're looking for ways to spend money here with this grant, where I feel like there's any money to spend, it's not where we should spend it, given what we just heard, but.
You mentioned that our plant at the arena, would this help?
We're not sure that it qualifies,
Could we check that?
but we don't have a solid plan either yet.
No, but we definitely have to do something there.
At some point,
We
yeah.
have to spend 100%, and if we can get 50%, well. It's not gonna add to anything, but if it's gonna reduce our costs. Because I know there's bills keep coming from the company to come and look at this project, and if you can. Minimize that. I think that would be.
That's the big ticket item for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one we have in the books for investigation, but that'd be the only one, I guess, to answer the question. Do we have anything else? Jeff, feel free to jump in.
No, honestly, for buildings, the next information I was gonna get is our insurance provider is supposed to do a detailed inspection of all our buildings, supposed to be this year. Multiple days spent looking at buildings. Just hoping that would identify there's needs, and then the other thing I can think of for the arena is a low E ceiling from when they did that analysis for the smart power system.
They're done. Jay.
They're done?
Yeah.
All right.
You gotta come to the arena more.
Just stop. Oh, that's soccer and. Cool. No, I don't have any, identified needs, Ken.
So I definitely not want to advocate chasing a grant in order to do something, because then it doesn't, you're spending in the wrong place in order to take advantage. Even if there may be a return that justifies in some cases, but it's strictly around doing a needs analysis, like where we have definite identified needs to repair recreational assets, if it fits within, a time horizon of the replacement, life or the need for maintenance based on our plans, then we should at least identify that or go on record and prepare a report that says, no, we don't have anything that meets these criteria. It is not worth pursuing this grant. That's just what I would.
I think I hear you and I agree with that. And the needs analysis will identify the primary and the proposal we have for GT plumbing.
In terms of the new infrastructure though, I mean, we do have an off-the-shelf project in terms of a replacement pool. Is that something that would be eligible for this?
It would be, I'm not sure how off the shelf.
It's not off the shelf.
Because the last one, I believe, was tied to
Arena.
the arena, the fire hall, right?
Okay.
Now, is that still a location? I think we'd be developing a new plan.
But there again, I mean, we really struggled right now to run the current that we have for staffing. It's, we struggle to offer the limited services we want to provide. I feel like it's a dead end to look at something new in that regards, but.
Well, this is the discussion around the level of service that needs to happen, because if our plan is to run the existing pool of failure and never replace, then that should be articulated in our strategic plan, or at least our community plan. So anyway, that's why I bring it up, because my community includes a pool that's always there and would like to, and at some point, I believe it should be replaced, and I'm willing to pay for it. And I think many are. So that's why I continue to bring it up. It's not something that can just be dismissed because we've never taken an official position on it. So,
But is it a priority?
that's, no, not for this grant, because it's not in our strategic plan. We should have articulated that if it was position ourselves to take advantage.
But if a grant came along that was 85%, certainly we would look at this a little different. Now we're starting to, so I think it's worthwhile investigating, is what I'm saying.
Or that one that allows stacking, so you can take advantage of federal and provincial, and then you put some skin in the game. Like, those are all the things that may make a project really appealing.
My problem is Randall still.
I think it deserves to be brought back and looked at, for sure.
So you have a rec meeting coming.
I'm ready.
So remember, we just went through an asset management plan and now
Recreation is really important.
soil effects in the ground.
That's right.
They're not in conflict at all. They're not. It's just a question of level of service and prioritization. And
What do you want to do first?
yeah, so we all have different views on that. We're not all aligned. That
All right, so that's it, Councilor Councilor Felton, it's your turn now.
Thank you. We have 3 items. Number 1, everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Request from the Habitat Interlude. Counseling to support the Take Back the Night event of 2024 that will be held on September 25th, 24. The recommendation is that the event be supported as requested by means of approving the event route, provide access to the washroom facilities and electricity in the Riverside Park gazebo, assistance from the fire department to lead the walk, and that members of council participate to address the participants. So that's number 1. Number 2, request from the Capscasing Baby Friendly Coalition to proclaim the week of October 1st to 7th, 2024 as Breastfeeding Week, and to raise the flag in front of the Civic Center in order to raise the awareness. The recommendation that the week of October 1st to 7th, 2024 be proclaimed as Breastfeeding Week, and for the town of Capscasing in an effort to raise awareness and in recognition to importance of breastfeeding and its benefits for our community. And number 3, request from the COC from DSAB for a letter of support for the Skill Development Fund submission titled Advance Access to Development and Vocational Assistance through Network Collaborations and Education Project. So that the recommendation is that a letter of support to be provided to the Cochrane District Services Board Skills Development Fund submission titled Advance. And that's it for me.
All right. Thanks, Gary. That concludes the committee of the whole. Adoption of minutes, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the joint committee of the whole and council meeting held August 12th.
Moved by Council Breton, seconded by Council.
So I'd like to pull one item out of there.
Okay.
Under protective services, the amendment to bylaw number 4567.
Do you want to pull it out of the minutes and not approve it?
This is.
Well,
and it's-
Yeah, these are the minutes. And
All these are just minutes, okay.
Yeah, and the bylaw has already been passed.
Oh, the bylaw is passed, okay, because I wasn't here last council meeting, I thought the bylaw was going to be passed tonight.
No.
So it's already done. But I still have an explanation on what that exactly.
Well, how about we go through it, and if there's any questions in the minutes, you can ask those questions.
Okay.
So the motion,
Moved by Council Breton, seconded by Council Newton, that the minutes of the joint committees of the whole and council meeting held August 12th, 2024 be approved.
is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to know. Fire Marquee Inc., what that is exactly.
Okay, our marking, we have, it's a company that we have an agreement since, I think, 2015 with. Some company, they can recoup, money from the insurance company after we fought hard. Okay. The example I gave everyone is on car insurance, we have, I'm not obscenely in English, but we have a net. Imagine you're stuck in down south and you have a car accident. Your insurance will provide you $1,500 or $2,000 for the hotel, for coming back home. So every residential insurance has this kind of avenue, and it's for fire suppression services. And if we don't collect this money that goes in the general fund of the insurance companies, so we can recoup dollars out of insurance company, and our marquee does that for us.
What if the insured person or the building doesn't have that?
We don't charge.
Then you don't charge.
We only get it if it can be.
And what percentage goes to this company?
30%.
30%
Yeah.
to collect this?
Yeah, but based on my personal experience, j'ai essayé de récupérer des sommes.
Ouais.
It's impossible. It's not impossible. It's very difficult because I think we have a close to good insurance company in Canada. You need to go with the right person. This company is specialized on.
So, si une personne ou une famille passe au feu, puis ils n'ont pas ça, ils n'ont pas d'assurance ou ils n'ont pas ça dans leur police.
On va pas changer.
We don't charge anything.
C'est juste s'ils sont assurés,
S'ils sont assurés pour ça.
C'est ça.
As an example, 3 years ago, we fought a major fire. Okay? J'avais 9 services d'incendie, 80 pompiers. We were able to recoup $212,000 after the 30% limit was paid to fire market. And that included all the costs that you can imagine at the fire involved.
Okay, but it's not, if there is not that, if there is no insurance or
We don't go there.
it's bad enough that somebody would go through a
Yeah.
fire and then we go and send them a bill.
Yeah.
And then that would be.
But we had a similar sign since 2016, if I remember.
Has this fire department ever done that before?
Yeah, a few times before 2015.
All right, thank you. Are there any other discussions? All right, all in favor? Carried. Unfinished business, reconsideration request from Council Breton for personal legal fees. Be paid by the municipality code of conduct municipal conflict of interest act presented on July 15th, 2024. I am going to turn the table over to you, Councilor Munna. And I believe there's 1, 2, 3 in conflict. Gary, you're stop.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave the meeting, then Chantal can text me when to come back. Is that what you want me to do,
Okay.
Chantal? Okay. I'll leave right now.
Okay.
It's warm.
Unfinished business, that's why it's further down, okay, sorry about that. Unfinished business, thank you. Okay, so this is, reconsideration of the request from Councillor Baton for personal legal fees to be paid by the municipality regarding Code of Conduct Municipal Conflict of Interest Act that was presented on July 15, 2024. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to, I would like to ask why you haven't declared a conflict on this, Councillor Platon, to excuse yourself from this. I'm just, I was uneasy the last time we had this, discussion because it's a bit strange because it seems you would benefit from this particular decision if, depending on what is taken and or have the opportunity to influence it. So I'd just like to understand why you don't see this as a pecuniary interest.
I quite honestly didn't even think that I had the option to vote on it because it was directly affecting me. So the last discussion, I did not vote on it. Mais si tu te sens plus à l'aise, j'ai aucun problème à sortir. Je pensais pas que, à cause c'était directement lié à moi, je pensais pas que j'avais un droit de vote là.
Mais l'autre affaire, c'est que tu as l'opportunité d'influencer tout le monde qui sont ici et c'est le but de ce procédure de t'excuser si. Oui, parce que c'est comme étrange et j'ai pensé ça après l'autre réunion que.
Ben, j'ai pensé que les gens avaient peut-être des questions pour moi aussi. Ça, je voulais les répondre, mais j'ai aucun problème à m'excuser puis de déclarer un vote. Aucun problème. Yes, I've had it right at my side.
It's not my decision either. I'm merely asking you the question. Would you like to feed into, do you agree, disagree?
Like,
Should ask you that too, Chantal. Do you agree, disagree with the, I may have breached protocol here, but I don't think you should. You can't comment? Okay.
Comment or provide any advice.
So the other thing that we could decide, I think, is to potentially get a recommendation from the integrity commissioner to say whether this is appropriate either. But if we're all in agreement, then, or the majority is in agreement, then.
I agree.
Okay.
And I think.
You mean a meeting?
Yes.
She left, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Problems resolved.
Just didn't want to be completely arbitrary on this one. Just that there's other avenues we could get better advice first.
Yeah,
before
no problem solved.
I don't want to cause worry either by doing this. Okay.
The onus is on the member of council to declare it. We
Yes.
cannot provide them, but a member of council can also identify another member in conflict.
Okay. I definitely think it's a conflict. Okay, so on July 15th, Council Baton requested to consider that personal legal representation fees in the amount of $7,085 incurred by her as part of the Integrity Commissioner investigation regarding violations of the Code of Conduct and Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which was presented on June 17th, be paid by the municipality. At the time, we had asked for a potential breakdown from the investigator as to whether they could allocate certain costs for each individual allegation so that we could assign it proportionally to those which were where she was found to have breached the provisions versus those she didn't. And the response from legal regarding the breakdown of costs is as follows. I am not sure that what you're asking for is feasible. The complaint was dealt with as a whole for the majority of the time and not parsed per allegation. The only specific time entries that can be broken up per allegation would be our discussion about the specific response to each allegation and drafting the responses to each. I expect it would be equal amounts of time to discuss and prepare a response to each allocation. So those entries could simply be divided by the total number of allegations to get a per allegation cost. So in other words, total cost divided by the number of allegations would give us a good breakdown of what would be a fair allocation of cost recovery. And I believe what we had discussed at the last time, what we had said was the ones where there was a finding of violating the provision of the code or the act, there should be a cost, and where there was no finding of fault,
Dismissed.
well, a return of or a coverage of that particular cost and a return to Councillor Plateau. So based on that, the total fees that were incurred is reported as $7,085. The total number of allegations is, it was like six. So the number of allegation which were found to be in breach of provision or the act was two. So 7,000 divided by 6 times 2 would be the I guess, or the difference between those two costs would be what would be returned to Councilor Breton based on what we had suggested last time. Does that make sense? Or
I read the whole thing again.
Okay.
And the person that was drafting up everything used the exact same words. Dismissed. Dismissed in the mayor's case. Dismissed in Gary's case. Dismissed in Mr. Dennison's case. So when I was reading it for Mel's, each case, the 4 were dismissed. There were some questions, yes, but they were still dismissed. So I think we're doing the right thing. There was 2 allegations that came true. They were true 100%, but there was 4 and it wasn't. So.
any questions, comments?
I don't understand what we're breaking it down again? Is that what we just did? Is that what you just did? You broke it down to like what she's found guilty of?
We're just
Discussing.
saying because we can't do it any other way based on our questions to the legal. For legal counsel, we're saying we'll just do it per allegation. Say there's a cost per allegation. And we'll return the funds for those where she was found not guilty and she would be reimbursed for legal costs for those where she was not found to have violated the code or the act. That's what's being proposed.
The last time you got stuck at, I think you proposed a motion, Councillor Newton, and that's where you decided to put the meeting on hold, I guess, essentially until you get further. So I think you're looking for a motion and a vote on that, I guess, or for the motion to be seconded. If you want to move this forward, you gotta propose something.
We asked for breakdown costs and we got them, so.
Yeah, so I would ask then for a motion to reimburse costs for 2 out of the 6.
You're proposing that motion?
No, I'm proposing that motion. I don't think I can propose a motion, but I'm saying that's what the motion that should come from the council.
So I would go with the final statement, read in there, the other option would simply divide the total number of allegations to get an approximate cost per allegation for the entire engagement. So ours would be, we pick up any charges that were dismissed. And any allegations that were proven guilty, she pays for those. So you divide it by 6, she picks up 2. So it'd be
we reimburse for
reimbursement. Yeah.
I think that's makes sense. Is that, can you restate that as a motion?
So it would be to reimburse Council Breton's legal fees based on the total number of allegations that were found to be in violation.
We'll reimburse her for those that were dismissed.
Dismissed, sorry, yeah.
To be consistent with,
Yeah,
I guess it's consistent with our bylaw. Any comment from?
Speak about this for any.
No.
With the past, records.
I didn't think you could do that. I thought you had to, it was black and white.
No, they say, very sure.
That's the
Yeah, we asked.
explanation from her legal representation, but they cannot really.
Yeah, this is not legal
That's not
advice
our
or
legal.
counsel. This is her legal advice on the best way to part that out if it was separated. But this is not our legal counsel saying this is how we should be doing it.
Because
This is in response to our question, were the costs associated with each allegation or not, and that's what came back.
I'm still good with it. Just because the person who wrote this up used the exact same words. There's no way of breaking anything down on there. Other than that on percentage.
So the other options are to reimburse everything or reimburse nothing? Or is there a different, do you have an opinion or a perspective that you wanted to bring forward?
well,
So LeBlanc?
I think that the situations are different. Counselor Breton sought out legal advice herself. I think that it breaks policy if we continue to try to break it down and break it down and break it down to interpret what her legal recommendation was. To try to make sense of it, and the way I look at it is you made a choice, you receive legal fees, and I don't think that it's up to taxpayers to pay for those legal fees.
So the fact that there was a choice, just to rephrase in my own words, just the fact that there was a choice to seek out legal counsel to participate in an investigation where there was no requirement to have legal counsel to participate, because we can all participate and simply be interviewed without the need for a lawyer, which is normal, in fact, for any investigation.
But it is an option.
It's a personal option, you always
It's a
have
personal
to choose
choice,
without legal
yes.
counsel and legal fees.
It's these that never worked in interview.
No. That's another good point that I guess we did not discuss necessarily last time, which was there was an outright refusal to participate in the investigation, and using a lawyer as an intermediary to the investigation was
A personal choice.
a personal choice, and also would have incurred more cost than simply having participated willingly. That's another consideration. So I would ask would you be interested in modifying the recommendation or offer an alternative record? Because the way it's gonna work is there's two options and I'm gonna break the question.
Yeah, I understand that. I just, what you're bringing forth is new, like the whole breakdown again is new because, the first time this was brought forward, I thought that it was going to be, we vote for or against.
All or
And then it
nothing?
was all or nothing.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a recommendation to get a cost breakdown and then to pay only for what was found, I don't wanna say wrongful, but what was, I don't wanna say guilty, but what was found.
Were violations.
Violations, where there were violations. So that changed again, where we have the breakdown of cost here. And now we're breaking it, we're recommending that we break it down once again. Because we keep interpreting what the lawyer said here.
We did, I think we just wanted to understand those options before deciding, was whether it was possible and whether it made sense to break it down.
So now I have a question, so what does the new breakdown look like? So we have a cost of $7,085 and then we break it down into 6.
It's 4,700 will get reimbursed and 2,400 would get covered by her.
So is that possible? Like, can you do?
We can decide that, yes.
We can decide that.
That's what we're going to make out.
So we can decide, all gets reimbursed, none gets reimbursed, or that allocation where, 4,000 gets approximately
4,700 gets reimbursed.
and 2,000 is covered by
24.
Councilor Patel. Yeah. Those are the three options.
And policy says if you seek out legal counsel, you're responsible for it?
We're authorized to, our policy allows us to cover those costs. Doesn't say we have to, it allows us to cover them. We're authorized to cover a member of council against costs or expenses incurred to defend themselves as part of a complaint proceeding.
I'm gonna read the.
Sure, thank you.
So it does say in section 17.3 where complaints alleging violation of the code. Where a member is found not to have contravened this code, the municipality is authorized to protect that member against cost or expenses incurred by the member as a result of the complaint proceedings. So you have, council has an authorization to cover.
But we are not
It's
authorized,
specific.
I interpret that as we are not authorized to cover expenses where a violation has occurred.
Exactly.
So as a minimum, we can't, there's some minimum amount of that we can't cover. It doesn't speak to what if there's a mix of some violations and no violations, that we didn't foresee that situation, so.
And refers to the code of conduct, whether you have a 20, 50, one violation, it's the code. Code of conduct.
So there is a violation to the code of conduct. There are 6 actual violations to the code of conduct.
Because they break it down into different sections.
6
of the code.
allegations.
Yeah.
6 allegations, and
4 dismissal, 2 guilty.
And there's also a municipal code of conflict, conflict of interest act, that was also in there, which is within the code. So you may want to look at the allegations. Which ones were in violation? Were they in FIFA or were they the code of conduct? Because they actually break them down into 2 separate sections.
We want to defer this again and do, like, this would be the kind of thing that should be incorporated into the report. Or be part of a recommendation. Is it can you do that off the top of your head to just have this information? Okay. So it's up to us whether we want to push this out again to consider those further. But how, I'm not sure I understand how that would change anything, because if there's whether some are code violations or some are conflict of interest act violations, does that change the reimbursement? Does that change, right? I don't understand how it would, but what if there's 3 and 3? What if there's 2 and 4? What does that? I don't think that changes anything. Unless I'm misunderstanding, why would a code be
The
different?
code
than-
encompasses everything, so to break it down.
Okay,
So the code is just code.
so if there was one violation of the code,
It can be 20 violations or allegations within the code, or it could be one as a. Depends on each section, what actions. So you really need to break it down per section.
well, I don't need to, but somebody could.
Yeah.
Again,
So
this would be
one-
helpful to get some recommendations on this
yeah,
regards.
well,
We keep
the-
muddling through around here without really any support
So,
or guidance,
so when the report was presented. One violation could have. Been made reference to 3, 4 sections of the code. And under one allegation.
Okay,
The second allegation could have had 5 different sections of entire code. So then you're breaking it down in a lot of sections. So one violation could be in FIFA and a code of conduct.
okay.
So we do the same thing for the previous ones.
Well, they're all broken down for
But we didn't,
sections.
we didn't question nothing of it
Yeah.
when we
But
came up
it's
and said we were paying it, right?
difficult when you want to break it down because you have so many different sections of
Yeah.
the act and the code. So, I mean, one violation could be more serious than another.
I think we need to clearly understand policy and procedure. That's I think, because if we continue to break it down, it just becomes more muffled and.
And your code is very vague.
This breakdown and the answer from the lawyer was in reference to how much time was spent defending each of the allegations. No time was spent defending any of the allegations. All the time was spent avoiding the investigation. So I'm not sure why this conversation will break down per allegation when none of that cost is associated with the allegations themselves. I don't want to muddy the water even more, but I feel like we're going down.
It doesn't muddy the water, that's a pretty clear.
That's the answer. It's,
Yeah.
and going through it, all of it was spent writing emails back and forth to avoid the investigation. The answer here is, but if you're gonna separate it, it could be separated equally. But none of that time was ever spent on the allegations. It never made it that far. It never made it to an interview.
Well, it had to do with something because disability was, she was, breach of code of conduct. That someone has to have said something.
Down there was
No.
an info, it was a conflict of interest breach.
The contract of nursing, she was dismissed on that one. There had to be somewhat of an investigation on that one.
There was an investigation on the part of.
He did
the commissioner.
make phone calls. And there was no responses. The asking local bus driver company to leave existing positions, that was dismissed. He did interviews.
Yeah, the integrity commissioner did, but her
Yes.
lawyer didn't.
Was never involved in
This
any
is
of that.
about her legal fees.
But he
Not the
was
investigation.
actually on part for her.
No, he wasn't, no, he wasn't.
I wasn't part of it. Was anyone else?
There were interviews with the people involved.
No, but I mean,
But these legal fees never, or at least as far as I can understand, the response is were never spent on defending the allegations. They were spent on disputing the investigation as a whole. And I'm not trying to steer it one way or another. I'm just trying to maybe get us out of the, well, maybe not.
I just don't think that we can continue to break it down, because the more we break it down, we have to decide it's this or it's that.
I would invite him, I've already made up my mind, so I would invite you to submit a motion if you want, I will break the tie.
I submit the motion that Councillor Breton pay for her legal fees.
And Bruce, you're sticking with, break it down proportionally? I support no repayment of any fees whatsoever,
Okay, so
so,
put a motion on the table and
Okay.
then,
so.
and then vote.
Sure.
So what's moved by,
Moved by, Councillor LeBlanc to not repay
Okay.
the legal fees. Because a proportionate breakdown does not make sense in light of the fact that it was costs incurred by her lawyer to avoid participation in the investigation.
we have a seconder,
No, we don't.
okay?
Well, we don't.
No.
We've only got two members.
So
How does that work?
for that motion,
you gotta put both motions.
yeah, we need.
So again, I'm not trying to steer it, just the clarity, the motion is what happened, is what happened already. So I'm not sure that that's a valid motion, but this is already what happened. She's bearing the cost of these legal fees as it is. She's asking that we pay for some of it, so if there's any motion to be made, I think it would be.
Deny the request. Is that?
No, that for the municipality to bear some of the costs or all the costs or however that looks, but her paying the legal fees is how it already sits today. She's asking that she
Be reimbursed.
be reimbursed. I think if there's a motion to be made, it would be one of you two suggesting that there's a reimbursement of the fees.
So the motion would be to go against policy and reimburse.
Yes, and then that would be seconded and whatever. Because the
We're still
motion
not
that
gonna get
counts,
seconded, though. That's-
but you may not, but I mean, just for technicality, the motion that the councillor, the man made was already the course of events as they stood, right?
Okay, so. So to go against policy.
So the request is reconsideration of the request for Councillor Breton for personal legal fees be paid by the municipality.
Somebody would need to move that. As I see it, otherwise there's no motion, so things
So-
take their course.
So there's no reconsideration for that.
Bruce motioned that as amended with a proportional breakdown.
Yeah. That's the one that we had already.
Yeah, that was your motion the last time.
So that's the only one we really need.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is. Councilor Nichols'
And we,
motion.
you can second, or you can second a motion even though you're gonna vote against the motion, right? No,
No.
okay, then we can't, okay.
So Councilor Newton's motion is that the request be considered as a proportional breakdown based on the
Total fees divided by the number of allegations.
allegations. Okay. So that was brought to the table.
We brought to the table. Now we just asked for a vote.
So do you want a recorded vote or just a hand vote?
Recorded vote.
They're requesting a
Yeah,
recorded vote.
recorded vote.
We are in trouble.
We're recorded anyway, so.
Correct. Now we will ask all in favor.
All right, all in favor? 1, 0, and I will, so,
So yay,
I'm
and then
1 yay, 2 nays.
please raise your hand so I can mark down. It's a recorded vote.
What's that? Okay, so
Yeah.
nays.
Thank
There you go.
So the motion is defeated.
Yeah. Motion defeated, I need to say that, okay. Perfect, thank you. All right, so that's it for this item.
We call back to everybody.
You want to text you?
Yeah. I'll make sure Gary's coming down.
You don't need to do anything further other than to do this as part of the minutes, so we're good. I can
Defeated, we're done.
stand down.
Well, with high school.
But
Okay, so it's done.
He is back. Again. Wait.
Hello.
Clap.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so item 7 is dealt with. Where's nothing?
was he not?
Here. Good discussion.
Was it, he wasn't in the.
He was, he's probably like sorting them. Okay, we have correspondence anyway while we're waiting for him up there. LaForge Go Getting Country Music Festival acknowledgement. We also have for information 44th annual Terry Fox Run, we held September 15th, 2024.
We added in there that Stella communicated with us, and she's so far at $3,837 in her fundraising. And that anybody can go to her Facebook page to sponsor.
Okay, so.
Hey,
Yep.
just on part of the one for the. I did do a tour through. And that part was phenomenal, like there were so many vehicles back in there. There was. I think it was well needed. I went over by Walmart right after that, there wasn't one at one. So. The good thing about that, no one's drinking driving, great close to that,
Yeah.
yeah, really good.
Good.
Again, to go back to La Bulge, I did go do a little presentation here for your 25th celebration, and they thanked the town repeatedly, so they're very grateful. And what a success, because the whole organization is run from volunteers. So that's all of it. I think that's pretty phenomenal. Deserves to be mentioned. So.
All right, any other tidbits for the information items? Okay, so we have committee of the whole recommendation, the motion to approve the recommendations from the committee of the whole held August 12th.
Actually, there were no outstanding recommendations emanating from that meeting.
So no motion needed. Staff report, we have a request to approve and participate in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Training Session for members of council and staff to be held in Kapuskasing on September 23, 2024. That day I am in Toronto, so.
So they do require a resolution to be passed before they can offer training. Just a side note update for today, they were hosting a training session in Moonbeam on the Sunday. That has been canceled as of today due to lack of participation. And they are wanting to confirm our participation for the 23rd, and it was extended to other neighboring municipalities so that they can proceed with the training.
So do we have any from council that are planning on attending?
What was the name on that?
I was going to attend in Moonbeam on the Sunday.
When I confirmed your name, they answered back saying that it's canceled.
The 23rd.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday, so it'll be from 9 till noon.
Is that canceled? That was canceled?
No,
No?
the Sunday one in Moonbeam was canceled.
They just want to know numbers for the one from Cal. So
Yeah.
if council is planning on attending, then
For our re-education there?
Yeah, and so it's a refresher on roles and responsibilities of members of council, accountability and transparency, governance in general, and the municipal conflict of interest act.
let me put it to you that you're never too old to learn.
So.
So we have two from council for sure,
Okay,
and possibly three with nothing, and Ken can't make it.
I can't be.
Can't make it.
Move
Okay.
on this week.
huh?
Okay,
That'll be horrible, you can come in.
Mandatory, you have to pay. Cool.
all right. Motions and notice to motions. We have a motion to approve the updated 2024 asset management plan as per OREG 588/17.
Yes, well, first I'll read the motion for the training.
Okay,
That moved by Councillor Dan, seconded by Councillor Monarch, that council approve and participate in a training session offered by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to be held in Kapuskasing on September 23rd, 2024 at the Civic Center Auditorium.
you need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bruce and seconded by Councilor LeBlanc. All in favor? Carried. Motion to approve the updated 2024 asset management plan.
Can I just make a comment about that? So, we're moving and passing the, resolution tonight, but we can update that as many times as we want. So as JF is making updates, refreshing the data, that may come back every year for approval, just because the data gets better and better.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's a requirement to pass it by resolution, right? So it's moved by Councillor Breton, seconded by Councillor Newton, that the updated 2024 asset management plan as presented to meet OREG 588/17 be approved.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to award the detailed engineering services for the connecting link intake 9 Riverside to Bonnieview project.
Moved by Councillor Mark, seconded by Councillor Dennison, that the contract for detailed engineering services for the connecting link in intake 9 Riverside to Bonnieview resurfacing project be awarded to EXP Services, Inc. in the amount of $124,125 plus HST.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to award the contract for King, Birch and Oak Streets.
Moved by Councillor Newton, seconded by Councillor Breton, that the contract for the reconstruction of King, Birch, Oak, and Oak Streets be awarded to Villeneuve Construction with the proposed cost reduction items in the amount of, let me just make that's a revised amount. That's the montant, 3 millions.
And the sidewalks is going to be discussed.
You want this in a resolution or?
We can add it.
So 3 millions, 598.
3,498,289.
Maybe we just had a comment that says the final decision on sidewalks and curbs will be made before
Proceeding the same.
proceeding with the project. Before proceeding with the execution.
So you have you moved your seconder?
Yep.
All,
Yeah, it's not great.
Yes.
all in favor? Okay, carried. General items and new business, nil, move to closed session.
Moved by Councillor Mark, seconded by Councillor Dennison, that council moved to a closed session pursuant to section 239(2)B regarding personal matters of identifiable individuals, including municipal employees, and in relation to complaints, section 239(2)C regarding a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, and section 239(2)D regarding labor relations concerning non-union employment benefits.
Right, all in favor? Carried. Okay, cool. Well, vacation's over, Heath. Hey, no. No.
I know, but I'm not backing up and there's a lag.
We can talk because it's gonna be coming home.
See if I-
Well, your camera was on Facebook.
You guys waiting for me?
I gotta say, I like this new Gary a lot more. I don't see your face.
5 minutes.
I'm almost falling asleep. No, just kidding.
Well, that's nothing unusual.
Let's see. It's back live, so,
So we're good?
no, let's see back. I love it.
Are we good?
At the live. Go back to live. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so can we adjourn from closed meeting? Like,
Oh, okay, so it is a live. Okay, so we're back. Very good. Here we're back. But the volume's on the thing.
okay,
Okay.
motion then. Motion to adjourn from closed. Oh, boy. Oh,
That's why you're the second time.
especially it's live.
Shut up.
Yeah, so, but you don't know.
Who wanted to go live?
Thanks. We're good. We're good now.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. And then-
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Not later. Full-time IT tech.
Yeah. Okay, motion adjourned from closed.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Raffon, seconded by Councilor LeBlanc, that the closed session be adjourned at 8:58 PM.
All in favor? Carried, report from closed.
Yes, moved by Councilor Newton, seconded by Councilor Munnick. Following close, number 1 is to adopt and implement the salary grids as proposed and presented by Gallagher International as part of the compensation review to meet internal equity, gender equity legislation and maintain market competitiveness. And to proceed in adopting bylaw 4605 to update the existing fringe benefits and compensation for non-union employees. Number 2 is to authorize the CAO to negotiate an offer of purchase for the acquisition of land located in the area of Ash and Cedar Street for development purposes based on the current asking price and within the municipal surplus land reserve. And number 3 is to accept the workplace investigation formal notices as
Okay.
presented.
Okay, in favor? 2, 3, are you in favor, Gary?
Yes.
Yeah, 4, you in favor? You're not in favor? Okay, so 4 in favor, 5 including me, opposed? Oh, I'm not that, okay. And I believe you wanted to abstain?
Yeah.
Okay, so no one abstained. So it's passed. Okay, bylaws.
Bylaw, so moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor LeBlanc, that bylaw 4605 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2981 to update existing working benefits, fringe benefits and compensation grids to non-union municipal employees be enacted and passed, that the corporate seal be affixed thereto, and that the bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Gary,
Yes.
that's a yay?
Yay.
4, 5 with me, opposed? Nothing, abstained is Mel. So it's passed. Motion to approve the confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Newton, seconded by Councillor Lennox, that bylaw 4606 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be enacted and passed. That the corporate seal be affixed thereto, and that the bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk.
Sure, we're all in favor of this. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Moved by Councillor Dennison, seconded by Councillor Breton, that the meeting be adjourned at 9 p.m.
All in favor? Take it. Carries, okay.
Aye.
Bye, Gary.
Bye, Gary. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.